welcome to Today in Woburn. I'm your host, Samantha Stone, and today I have two distinguished guests with me. I have our mayor, as always, who's very generous with his time, and also I have our chief of police, which I'm really excited for him to be a first-time guest on the show, and we've got lots of really important community things to talk about together. So welcome, everyone, and welcome, Scott.
Great to be here, Samantha. Thank you.
Same here. Great to be here.
Excellent. I love it. Well, we're going to start with you, Scott. I've got a small number of questions, and then we'll dig in with Chief Rufo, who I have a lot of questions for from the community. Folks have lots of interests. I wanted to start, Scott, with what I think is really positive news. Is it looks like we got a $100,000 grant for the senior center, and wanted to get an update about how we'll be using those funds.
That's good. So we've been really that money was part of the Green Communities funding, and we've been really successful with leveraging that money from the state. Years when I first became mayor, we became a green community, had to do a number of things that qualified you to become one. And when we first became a green community, there weren't that many communities around cities or towns. We were one of the first, not the first, but in the second round anyway, we became a green community, and we've been able to obtain about $1.7 million in grant funding to do energy upgrades. Some have been down the police station, a lot in City Hall. You know, one of the very first things we did, Samantha, is we converted our street lights from the regular halogen to the LED, and we saved significant money with the great assistance from the state. Now this time around, the grant levels are going down. I mean, when we first got the grant, we were up around 300,000. You know, last year we had a couple 100,000. They've been going down because more communities are getting involved, becoming more competitive. But still, to get $100,000, we're going to be putting the air source pumps, you know, the systems that you put in for air conditioning and for heat. They're now for heat too. So we've got an antiquated system at the senior center for heating, and this will allow us to save probably about 20 to 25,000, 20,000 a year in utilities. That's what the estimate was.
Wow, that's incredible. Well, I'm really excited we have the opportunity to do that. I'm glad we got into the program early and got to take advantage of as much as possible. Also want to talk about sort of on the good news front. There's a lot of people who are talking about replacing the parade with a variety of different activities. One of those rumors is that Captain Jack might be cooking up some Halloween fun. I wanted to touch base with you and see if you have any thoughts, not just about what he might be doing, but the community overall. Right.
So people are really passionate about this issue with the Halloween parade, and the Lions Club has done for over 50 years has done a fantastic job, you know, partnering with the police department, DPW, and City Hall, and you know, they've really done a yeoman's job and having a great family entertainment for over 50 years. Unfortunately, you know, we discussed this recently about the guidance and protocols from Governor Baker and the state, which are really for the best interest of everybody, that parades and large gatherings are not going to be allowed till, you know, phase 4 of this reopening. And at this point, we don't have a phase 4. So our parade will be, you know, unfortunately canceled. And other, like you said, other people stepping up and want to find out different ways to do it, or to have some type of Halloween celebration. And any type of parade is going to be really difficult to pull off, you know. So I say parade, like some very, very well-intentioned people have come to my office and say, maybe we can do something with children marching down Main. I said, that's not going to work because it's still a gathering and it's still a parade, and we just can't. Rex, you know, as we know, we spoke to Rex last week, and you know, he's always had this idea of kind of a drive-through, you know, which really I think has some merit. It's just a question of, you know, who's going to volunteer to help pull it off, where it would be, in some of the details. So, you know, we're open to discussing that, and I don't want everybody to get their hopes up too high. But again, I don't want to you know, totally dampen people's spirits. So we've got, you know, the Board of Health is dealing with other cities and towns right now. And that's the big question about, are cities and towns even going to have Halloween? I know, I think Lowell may have already canceled theirs. I don't want to put it out there, but some cities and towns have already canceled their actual trick or treat, which again, that's something parents will have a lot to say about, but we're waiting to get some guidance. And it's really going to be the hot topics, I think, for the Board of Health calls, and they do 2 of those a week. So we should get some more guidance on what we can do, what we can't do. And, maybe that, Rex's idea or some other ideas might be able to get done in a short period of time, because we're really only, we're just over a month away from Halloween. It's going to be here before we know it. And Chief Rufo will have a lot to say about, what his department's comfortable with, and, any type of parades are really off the table at this point. So.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. I think that's really important. I'm still optimistic about trick-or-treating because I do think it can be done distance, but we of course need to understand all the criteria and safety measures there. So we'll continue to keep people updated. Thank you for that update. Yep. You won't be surprised to hear, because I know that you have been flooded with inquiries about some open meeting law violations with the libraries and the trustees. And there has been conversations. A lot of people have reached out to me about Zoom pod requests for volunteers, and staff is still not working. Can you give us an update about those expired positions on the trustee board, or anything else going on there that might be helpful?
Yeah. So one of the things that we put out there is that there are 9 members of the library board of trustees. 6 of them, Samantha, as you know, are lifetime trustees, and 3 of them get appointed by the mayor. And 2 of the appointees, Bill Callahan, and the other one, Catherine Tifo. Catherine, I just appointed maybe a year ago, but she was filling in the end of an expired term. And I really just haven't got around to reappoint her. I think they're 6-year terms or 3-year terms, one of the two, and I'll double check. But she's the type of person that I would like to have on as a trustee. She's, she represents a different age group, and she's very well educated, and I think is a real plus to the board. So she's one that I just really haven't got around to reappointing, which she will definitely be reappointed. And the second one is Bill Callahan. He's another dedicated trustee who, is a very good friend of mine, and a very good friend of Richard Mahoney, who is another very good friend of mine, even though sometimes we don't see eye to eye. Rich is a real good friend of mine, and he'll be the first to tell you that we get along very well. And we don't agree on everything, but we certainly have an excellent relationship. And Richard approached me about putting Bill on, and I thought it would be a great idea. And Bill's been a very good trustee, so he's another one that I certainly will be putting back on. And the third one is Carol Seitz, and she's another. I think she's in the eye of the storm with some of the activists who don't agree with some of the things she does, but she's very well-intentioned, and she's got a great background in history. So she's, like I said, she brings a lot of pluses to the board. So, the trustees, like all boards, are going through a new, this new phenomenon, which I hope is very fleeting, but it's been with us for 6 months with COVID, but they're now adjusting to having public meetings, and they're adjusting to their board meetings through Zoom. And frankly, a lot of the boards are making mistakes, and they're not intentional mistakes. They're just, it's a new medium of holding a public hearing. So, people sometimes, you have to give a little bit of leeway with that. There were 100 people who got on the trustees meeting. Some, I think, were either misinformed or felt the meeting was for some other purpose. But Samantha, and I know there's a difference between a public hearing and a public meeting. And a public meeting is really just, public meeting has to be accessible, but the public does not have any right to speak or participate in a public meeting. Whereas a public hearing, posted as a public hearing, they have the right to speak until, until the chairman decides to close the meeting, and that's what it's posted for. So, there were some unfortunate procedures that happened, and people have the right to file anything they want with with the local board, which then goes to the attorney general. So, it's the only message I have is that, it was, from what I see, there was nothing intentional. In fact, I think they gave one of the trustees couldn't get on, so they waited 25 extra minutes to let that trustee get on. And I think these things will work out. As you said, there are a number of issues, and I'd be happy to let you ask me more about what some of them that you're hearing or
Yeah.
seeing, and we can go through them.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And look, honestly, I think the technology stuff, I know there are people who are very, very concerned about that. And that's certainly a basis for some of the open meeting violation. But I think it's a very fair criticism that the board has not been very good about communicating with the community. They've been pretty accusatory and in some of those instances negative. I see some of those open positions as a way to diversify, to your point, like to have some people with different backgrounds on the trustees and not
Yep.
taking away from the people who have been there and served or anything like that. But it's an opportunity for us to take a look back. One of our challenges as a community is most of our government representation doesn't represent our community fully. And that might be an opportunity to enhance and change that. So appreciate the
Yep.
update there. I think the other thing that came up about the library, and I'll just ask, is there was a email that went out that was soliciting volunteers to run Zoom pods and, around topic areas in the community. But we all know that the librarians have not been allowed to work their full-time staff, and that many of them have wanted to do programs that they've not been allowed to. And so I think there's a question of, Scott, this is not really a question for you necessarily. You don't decide these things, but I think it relates to the trustees and the board and who we have in those roles, and wanted to get your take on anything you might be able to share there.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And the issue about the book clubs, and I've been clear with Bonnie, and she'll tell you, I think it's important that we do have the librarians who want to run book clubs. Bonnie has another idea, which I think is equally compelling, where she wants to have a librarian be the focal point or the crux of starting these other book clubs. And it's not getting volunteers to run them. It's really getting people who are interested in a book club. Like the library is not the only game in town. There are other book clubs that spring up in offices and wherever they are. So what Bonnie is trying to do, which I think is a really good idea, is in addition to have a librarian or two help set these up, help people start their own book club. It's not, so there is a little bit of a misnomer here that we're getting volunteers to run the book club for the library. That's not what the point is. The point is, let's get these people, show them how to have a book club. And a lot of people already know how to do it, but I think it's really just another way to get out in the community and say, if you need help, we can help you. But I clearly want to be known that I think it's important that we do it both ways, which is really within and help communities set up their own book club. So I think there are, I know Hermaine's been really itching to get her book club up and running, and I think she's got a passion for it, and I think there's definitely a place for that right in the library, and then she could hold it in the library and also do it by Zoom to get a bigger audience. But I think there's, just so people understand that we're not looking for volunteers to replace librarians. We're trying to get people to, help. We're getting people who would like to start a book club and saying, this is how you do it, and we're here to assist you. That's all.
Good. Well, that's good clarity. And I'm sure as librarians feel more comfortable being the spokespeople of the library again and stuff, that will help ease some of the miscommunication that's happened there. Just one other, I'm just looking at my notes here, I'll make sure I don't miss anything. Two other questions for you, and then we'll wrap up. The first is, I know that we've started enrolling in the Supervised Learning Center program for students when they're not in their physical buildings, in their hybrid environment. How is that going? Anything in the community should hear there?
Well, I think that's a great initiative, and I'm really happy to be part of it. It's a bit of a coalition between, major coalition between the school department, the Boys Club, and the YMCA, and they've got, I think, upwards to 300 applications, which is really good, and it'll help. It's real. The goal is to help, those families who really need to be to work, because of their income or because of, the ability to have somebody home supervising their child. So the city's stepping up and working with the school and the YMCA and the Boys Club to provide those opportunities where they have a supervised learning atmosphere, help them, with troubles with remote learning when there's, maybe nobody will be in their house. The parents might have to be out working. So this will really, I think, be a big boon and kind of fit in with the state's concerns, with Governor Baker's concerns that, we need to get people back to work. and we need to also get people back to school. So if we're helping parents who otherwise wouldn't work get out to work by this program, I think it's great, and it's going really well.
I think helping working families is really, really important, or people who need to take care of a sick, family member, or any of the other circumstances that were required, very difficult for them to manage on their own.
Yeah.
The last question I ask you, so we've all been reading about in Concord, not too far from us, there was some partying happening that has sort of enough scale that the school system felt they needed to go remote for a couple of weeks. I would hope that our residents of Woburn are a little bit more careful than that, but what would you like students to know as we're about getting close to opening up back the buildings again?
Yeah.
What guidance and advice would you give them for preparing for that?
Same as you and I have been talking about, you have to, like, if we let our guard down, this virus will spread, and we don't want to slip back to that position where we'd be going remote. But if we have an uptick in the community, and as we said, you have one party, or you have a bunch of students, or even a bunch of adults in one area, that's how you get a cluster. And we just have to be, we have to be on guard and vigilant about doing the right thing. And it really is, I don't want to say it's for protection. It's simple as, when you can't be socially distanced, make sure you wear your mask, try to keep physically distant, and wash your hands, and good hygiene. Those are the things that they keep preaching, and they do make a difference. So I'd urge everybody to do the simple things, and that's what we can do to try to slow the spread and make sure that we keep schools going, because it's important to have kids in there. And do it right for the teachers and the students, make it a healthy environment.
Excellent. I think it's a good reminder for all of us. And I know everybody's getting a little antsy, and everybody's, it's been 6 months now since we first really shut down schools. Everybody wants to get back in the groove of things. So we can all help each other do that and keep as normal a schedule as possible.
Definitely. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining me, Scott. Anything else you want to add before we pop over and talk to the chief?
I think that's great. I'm going to grab you offline just for a quick reminder on, you had sent me a message a while ago, and I'll just get back to you after you finish with the chief.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. You're welcome to hop off or stay on, and we'll connect after. Thanks. Great. Thank you. Chief Rufo, thank you for your patience as we talked to Scott and talked about a whole bunch of city business. I'm really excited you joined us today.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Excellent. So, this has been a really unusual time for our entire community. And before we did anything else, I just wanted to kind of check in with the police department and see how the men and women on our force are doing with new requirements, new restrictions, safety concerns, just in general. How's everybody hanging in there?
Well, I think overall very well. Everybody's maintained a great attitude. The public has actually been very, very good. We're a very resilient group, and they're showing their true colors. They've, again, maintained a great attitude, nothing negative, and just pressing forward.
Good. Well, we really appreciate that is not easy to do, because they're under their own strains and concerns and have their own families of schedules they're balancing, and back to schools and all the things just like the rest of us do. So we appreciate that. One of the things that I think is really worth celebrating is, my understanding is we caught a thief who had been taking mail out of the mailbox and was wreaking all kinds of havoc with people's bills and stealing money and such. And I thought it might be a great opportunity to tell a little bit about how that happened, and if there's anybody that you want to particularly recognize for that hard work, please do.
Absolutely. Well, it was a very organized group. A good significant portion was out of a fairly local city, and they were basically mailbox phishing. And we had approximately 17 different incidents and reports taken from the mailbox on Federal Street on the side of the post office. Inspector Jim Flynn, very tenacious detective, was assigned the case, and one of the nights he basically set up a surveillance in the area, and was able to catch 2 suspects in the process of mailbox phishing. And they use basically mouse traps with the glue and string that goes into the mailbox. And they literally pull out, envelopes. And it's usually around the end of the month and the first of the month when checks come out, and also rent checks are due to, various landlords, at which time they'd wash the checks, do some alterations on them. And it was quite a very significant process they had. And again, Detective Flynn just did a great job. He's amazing. He's just, and it was a cooperative effort with a lot. Other detectives joined in, but he was the lead detective on it and just did a tremendous job.
Well, I think there's a lot of relief people around, and we know how serious a crime that is. So thank you for that. I was super grateful for his hard work. One of the other things that, maybe this is an impression, I don't know, but it feels like there's an awful lot of people going into people's cars and bikes being stolen of late. And I don't know if it's a reflection of people being around more people out of work. Maybe it's just we're sharing more, and it in fact is exactly how it always is. Can you shed a little bit of light on those?
There definitely has been an uptick. In fact, recently we had, just last week, a couple of very significant arrests out of Kimball Court Apartments. There was a group that was doing a significant amount of car breaks in the North Woburn area. And then also an arrest of somebody from the west side that actually occurred in New Hampshire that was responsible for a significant number of breaks as well. And again, I mean, the people have a lot of idle time, and idle time is a devil's workshop. And there has been a significant increase in the amount of car breaks and bicycle thefts that we have seen. And again, a number of significant arrests over the last couple of weeks that has brought that to quite a grinding halt.
Well, thankfully, let's hope that stays that way. I'm very happy
Absolutely.
to hear that. It seems we're doing a good job of using, the cameras and the Ring doorbells and things that people have. That is that making your job a little bit easier to catch folks, or are those technologies not something that's been?
They are in some of them. I mean, the people that have is it Ring?
The Ring, yep.
Yes.
Yep.
I mean, if there's a crime that occurs within the camera, shot of, say, their home, it can play a degree of significance in an investigation. In these particular cases, it really didn't have an impact. But
Okay.
I mean, more and more people are employing the use of that digital technology, which can help us in investigations.
My husband, I was up at our lake place, and I had a visitor at the doorbell, and of course it rings on my husband's phone at work as well. And so I immediately get a text from him, who's stopping by? Whose white car is that in the driveway? So we joked, and of course he knew who was coming by. He had just forgotten, but but it's true that they are watching all the time.
There's a camera everywhere, so.
Right. I always tell my children, my young adult children, look, you just have to assume that every single thing you do outside the bathroom is filmed for the most part. So
Absolutely.
Go forward with that mentality and remember that. So, which is different than my days of being a teenager.
Me as well.
I could assure you. I want to talk a little bit about some of our efforts. I know right now our police force doesn't fully reflect the diversity of our community. And I know that the police department, as well as lots of departments around Woburn, are looking for ways to increase the diversity of candidates who apply for jobs and make us attractive to folks from all different kinds of backgrounds, and whether that's veterans or people of color or all different, people who speak different languages, like all different kinds of backgrounds. Can you tell us a little bit about what's happening related to the police force?
Well, we, if you don't know, we are a civil service community. So when we do call for candidates to be hired, we access a civil service eligibility list, and that list determines who we can actually call for an interview, or for employment purposes, do background checks and to continue the process. And again, we're basically bound by the civil service list. At the top of the list is usually children of police officers killed or injured in line of duty, disabled veterans, then non-veterans. And of course, their ranking is based upon a score they receive on the civil service exam. So again, we're bound by, the exam and the people that choose to take the exam. Our job to recruit more people, from the community, is interact and encourage people, or the kids or the young adults, to take this exam. And it starts as early as high school. Our door is always open. My door is always open. Just as recently as a couple of weeks ago, a high school teacher that I had in high school brought his 21-year-old son in. He's been long retired, but the door is always open. And, I started year 38, June 7th, and I'm as proud as I could ever be. And I would encourage anybody that has an interest in law enforcement to continue. And again, it starts in high school, and you set your mind, that's all I want it to be. Continue with high school. I encourage people to go to college, and it doesn't even have to be in criminal justice. Does it help? Absolutely. You get a more firm understanding of what you're getting into, and that helps. It always helps. So anything that you can do to further
I thought you wanted to be a
you
fighter.
as a candidate certainly helps. I'm
Scott
sorry?
saying he thought you used to want to be a fireman.
Are you kidding me?
That's one way to get your feathers ruffled there. I like that.
That's a
well
standing
played.
joke between police.
Yeah,
and
we have
fire.
that. He and Chief Adgate say one said they want to be a police officer, the other one said a fireman, and we just kind of laugh about that.
I love that. I have two of my brother-in-laws are firefighters, longtime firefighters.
My brother-in-law is as well. So.
Yeah. So
We depend on them both equally. They're great. They do great jobs.
Oh, couldn't live with it. In fact, I was telling Chief Rufo before we recorded that I unfortunately saw a very serious car accident yesterday on my way home back to Massachusetts, and both was so grateful when the police showed up, as well as the paramedics and the fire department. And you're always grateful for them, but in those moments when they're there and somebody's really injured and somebody's really hurt, it brings it home that much more. So I love that.
And I was 6 when I thought about being a firefighter.
So you couldn't be held accountable to that. At 6 years old, everybody wants to do everything.
Totally indecisive. I didn't realize.
I love that. Well, I think, it's really good advice, because one of the things I don't think most of us realize is the pool that you come from is that exam. And so even if somebody's not really sure that's exactly what they want to do, they should take the exam, because it puts them into a pool for consideration.
Absolutely.
And lets us know. So we should, spend some time with high school students and young adults and encourage them to do those things and try them out. So I'm really glad that you brought that to our attention.
Yeah, I mean, we always have officers walking downtown. High school kids are always around. Stop and talk to the officer. Our officers, the ones that walk, they're more than willing to talk. See an officer in a cruiser, sit and talk to them. That we encourage that. I mean, we're friends with everybody in the community, and we want them to be friends with us as well. And if we can encourage somebody for a career choice, I mean, I'd be more than happy to, and I'm sure most of the officers would as well.
Well, I love that. Let's talk a little bit about schools. So we are about to go back to schools. All of our schools have resource officers who are at least partially in the.
Well, yeah, we have currently 2. We've always had 2. In fact, just recently we named Officer Joe Wells as a second SRO. So Joe will be responsible for the junior highs, where Detective Fumacello is primarily at the high school. And then, of course, both assist with the elementary schools.
Okay. Right now the schedule is going to be really hectic, right? We've got different students in 2 days and others. We have some students that are there the whole time. I imagine that it's going to be a little bit hectic, students getting used to their schedules and when they can move in the buses and routes and everything. What role is the school resource officer will be playing in just helping all of us make this transition?
Well, I mean, we're all taking part in it. In fact, as early as today, the Highway Safety Division began sitting, doing traffic enforcement around the schools in preparation for next week. It's different. We're in a very different time, and people have understandably been under tremendous degree of stress, and this is a significant change, not only for the students but for the parents as well. So we've already, as I said, we've begun some traffic enforcement around the schools, and the school resource officers are there to help the students, with any problems they have, or assist the school administrators as well. We're there to help them and show a great working and a cooperative effort between the schools and the police department, which we have always had a great relationship.
That's great. I appreciate that. One of the things that is a difficult conversation for us to have in the community, we are really lucky. We have had largely a community-based police force that does reach out to the community. We seem to have good relations, but there are big societal issues that are happening around violence and training and really hard, difficult questions around racism and all these kinds of things. How do we as a city in Woburn engage the police department in these tough conversations instead of alienate it? How do we make us all be able to come together and have the kind of dialogue that we need? Because we've seen some of our other communities and our neighbors have not so good discussions, and it feels like a lot of tension has been created. And I think we as a community value our police force, and we don't want to see that happen, but we also know that there are big conversations we all need to be having.
Well, as I said, our door is always open here, and we're more than happy and receptive to talk to anybody. We go through a significant amount of training. Every year, every officer is required to do 40 hours of in-service training, and it covers every year a number of different topics. One of the topics that, in fact, tomorrow I'll be on a Zoom training class for fair and impartial policing. It's a train the trainer class, and then at the end of the month, I've got an officer going to a train the trainer, so we can actually come back and impart that knowledge to the rest of the department. I mean, that's the training is a very significant portion, and people don't realize we do that week. We do 2 weeks of firearms training every year. In fact, we do the taser, which is a less lethal form of force. We actually started our recertifications tonight. Last year, we had classes on dealing with the mentally ill, sexual harassment. We go obviously every year through legal update training. And over the last 2 years, I've sent a group of officers for veteran services training, and they themselves are all veterans. And it's, something we've worked with Home Base and some of their training programs. And it's something very significant that we're concerned with, because about 21 veterans a day are committing suicide. So if we can have a group of officers that can help and assist and provide immediate intervention, it certainly, I think, is rewarding. And these are people that understand where that veteran might be coming from, because they've all served. So we're constantly training. We're an accredited police department. Part of the accreditation process is a significant portion. It has to deal with training. Right now, there's 94 departments in the state that are accredited. There's 104 in process, and it's quite a lengthy process. And again, a significant portion of that has to do with training. And as I said, one of the biggest things coming forward now is the fair and impartial police training, which will be systemic in Massachusetts with police, and it begins here tomorrow with me.
That's great. Well, thank you for looking out for our community. And I hope our police officers know that sometimes difficult conversations come up, and, they've been really, I think, good about listening, and hopefully they're, listening with the same open minds all of us are trying to listen to. And it sounds like we've got some great training happening. So thank you for that, and being a leader in that. One of the other programs I wanted to mention, I'm going to get I don't know the name, so I'm not even going to pretend to know the name of it, but it was, if I remember, like a registry for adults or children who had autism or other things that might make communicating difficult. So if they had an interaction with the police force, you would know about their challenges, so we'd be able to implement that. I've heard similar types of things for elderly,
Yes,
residents with
awareness
dementia and stuff.
Yeah.
Can you just tell us a little bit about what those things look like?
It started a couple of years ago. We sent out forms, basically, and fill it out. We enter it into our IMC computer system. So if a particular party's name comes up with the address, that there might be a person in need of services or that may require assistance, it shows up on our screen. So say there's a call to 1 Smith Street. It would say this person might be impaired, or this person is this type of disability, so that we can address that quite rapidly. Just last week, we had a similar incident, and we actually located the party in a swamp, believe it or not, right outside of the extended stay, but we were aware of it. And the officers were quite diligent in looking, and one of them went a little step further and actually get up on a wall and found them. which I mean, it could have turned out negatively, but it was a very positive encounter, not only for the family, but for us as well.
Good. Well, I'm so glad to hear that they were able to help in that situation. Before I let you go, I just wanted to ask sort of a final parting question is, you know, I think it's not always clear to us what we could be as good citizens of Woburn and residents to help to make police work easier and more effective. So I wanted to give you the opportunity to kind of tell us what you wish all of us knew and thought about as we're interacting with the police force.
Well, I mean, obviously, we're in a very difficult time, as the general public is, and we go out of our way to make friends and let the community know that we're part of the community. We don't police it. We are part of it. And the only way we can do it efficiently is for you to be part of it as well. And we encourage that. And, you know, you see an officer in the street, say hello. You see him and having a cup of coffee. Sit down, have a conversation with him, engage in that conversation, learn about him, learn about, yeah, maybe I have a family, I live in town, or most of us do. We have a very vested interest in this community. Woburn is a great community, and I think that we have a great relationship with it. And the only thing we can do to make it better is to continue to build on it. And again, it's a partnership between us and the community to make it a better community.
I really think that's really great and important advice, right? I know that I'm always one to give a wave. I used to take walks with my dogs years ago, and I don't know the officer's name, but he clearly liked huskies. And so we bonded over my husky. One day he actually drove by with pictures of his dogs to show me as I was like out in the yard. And, you know, I joke about that, but that's really important. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, feeling part of the community and knowing each other and being there for each other.
Well, we are the community, so it's very important.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you for that. Please pass along our gratitude to the entire force. They have a very challenging job. And I know we rely on you to do an awful lot of hard work, and we thank you for that. And thank you for
we appreciate it.
Yeah. And, you know, seeing the officers at local events in the schools and all those things, I think helps with that as well.
Well, you'll see even more of it as school starts. There'll be a police officer at every school. And, you know, feel free, stop and say hello. We need that. And that's a great interaction. And it makes us feel good. And we want the public to feel, we are the community. We're no different than you. We're just there to help.
Excellent. Well, thank you both very much for joining us today. And thank you to all the Woburn residents who are watching. As always, please continue to take good care of each other.
Thank you very much.